Every morning, without fail, I wake up at 6 o'clock sharp. Not because I need to anymore. And certainly not because I have somewhere urgent to be at my age. No, there isn't much hurry left in my life. I wake because my body remembers. It remembers years and years of alarm clocks ringing in the dark, of moving quickly through the kitchen to brew coffee, fry eggs, and pack lunches before Oliver left for work. It remembers waking little Hamish, who never wanted to get out of bed for school, and the sound of his heavy footsteps dragging down the stairs. My body remembers what it meant to be needed. Now, at 65, there's no alarm clock on the nightstand. My eyes just open on their own, as though I've been wound up like an old clock that refuses to stop ticking, no matter how much time has passed. The first thing I do every morning is turn my head toward the picture frame on the bedside table. The photo inside has faded with the years, but Oliver's smile has not. He's been gone 4 years, and still, every morning, I half expect to hear him rattling in the kitchen, singing under his breath, while looking for the sugar bowl. Our home in Rexburg belonged to Oliver's parents before us. It was a gift, though gift doesn't really capture it. It was old and sprawling, with drafty rooms and squeaky floors, but it had a plot of land in the back that I turned into a garden. For years, that garden echoed with the sound of children's laughter, with the shouts of teenagers, with doors slamming and music blaring. Now, the silence is nearly constant, broken only by Hamish and Lorian's occasional visits that test my patience more than they ease my loneliness. My mornings always begin the same: a steaming cup of green tea, a slice of toast spread with orange jam, and the news read on the tablet Hamish gave me last Christmas. "Now you can finally learn to use modern technology, Mom," he said, smiling in that way he always does when he thinks he's smarter than I am. I laughed, even though his condescending grin stung a little. I never told him that. Today is Wednesday, and Wednesdays are for the garden. The air is cool but filled with sunlight, the kind of morning that makes the roses stand tall. I slip into my gardening gloves, not the apron around my waist, and walk out into the soil that has become my sanctuary. Oliver used to tease me, saying I spoke to the flowers more than I spoke to him. Perhaps he was right. Roses never rolled their eyes, never interrupted me, never sighed impatiently when I wandered too far into a story. I kneel before a bush of white roses and whisper to them softly, "You'll bloom soon, my beauties. Very soon." And in those moments, surrounded by earth and leaves, I feel like myself, like the real Giovanna Fellows. Not just Hamish's mother, not just Oliver's widow. Me. For 20 years I worked as a landscaper, planting and designing yards, all over town. Most of my clients were ordinary people, not wealthy, but I poured myself into each project as if it were my own. Now retired, I pour all that love and work back into this garden. It's the only place I feel completely free. The phone breaks my peace. It always does. I know before answering that it won't be a friendly call. Hamish never phones just to ask how I am. I wipe my hands on my apron and pick it up. "Hi, Mom." His voice is clipped, rushed, as though I'm already wasting his time. "Hello, dear," I say warmly, trying to soften the edge I hear. "Lorian and I are stopping by tomorrow for breakfast. We have something important to discuss." I force a cheerful tone. "Of course. Would 9 o'clock be all right?" Yes, 9 is fine." He sounds distracted, already elsewhere. Then, as if it were an afterthought, "And Mom, please make those pancakes Lorian likes. The blueberry ones." I hesitate, then remind him gently. "Hamish, Lorian is allergic to blueberries." A pause. Then the long, heavy sigh. "I know, so." "Well, fine. Strawberries then, or whatever. You know how picky she is." The call ends quickly, leaving me with silence and a knot in my chest. Hamish is 38 years old and still can't remember what his wife is allergic to. 12 years married, and yet he expects me to keep track of her needs better than he does. I sink back into the garden soil, but my thoughts drift. I remember when I first met Lorien when she worked as a receptionist at the beauty parlour I sometimes visited. She was lovely, then radiant, even with a bright smile and a ring of laughter that seemed to pull people toward her. Hamish fell in love at once, and who could blame him? She was 7 years younger, lively, full of ambition. But something in her shifted after they married. The smile became rarer, reserved only for strangers. With me, she offered politeness. So thin it might as well have been disdain. I'll never forget one of those first family dinners. Oliver was still alive then. I made roast from his mother's recipe, slow-cooked and full of flavour. Lorien tasted it, then said casually, "The meat's a little dry. A little too much spice, don't you think?" Hamish laughed, stroked her hand and replied, "Mum's not much of a cook. You'll get used to it." I kept my mouth closed, but Oliver winked at me across the table. That wink carried 36 years of shared understanding, of silent humour. It said, "Don't worry, love. I know better." When Oliver died, the world tilted. One moment he was in the garage with a screwdriver in hand, humming to himself, bringing a broken radio back to life. The next moment he was gone. Just like that. 4 years and the ache is still sharp. He left me well provided for. Careful planning, retirement funds, insurance. Oliver was steady like that. And I've never been a spender. I should have known. Worries. But Hamish, my son has big dreams and little patience. His electronics store at the mall only survives because I've helped quietly, more times than I can count. He always says, "It's just temporary, Mum. Things will pick up soon." Yet somehow, soon never comes. By evening, I finish in the garden and go inside. There's a message on the answering machine. I press play. "Giovanna, it's Meredith. Don't forget about book club tomorrow, and please bring your lemon pie. Everyone loved it last time." Meredith, my only true friend in Rexburg. My heart sinks. Book club. I had forgotten, and now I can't go. Not with Hamish and Lorien coming. I call Meredith back. Her voice is warm but tinged with worry. "Is this another family thing?" she asks gently. "Giovanna, you cancel too often for them. Do they even appreciate it?" I fumble for words, but none come. Meredith sighs. "I just think you deserve more respect, dear. More than they give you." When the call ends, I stand by the window, watching the sun sink low. She's right, of course. I know it, but habits and expectations weave a web around me, and I can't seem to break free. That night, I prepare. I mix pancake batter, marinate, chicken with rosemary and garlic. Hamish has always loved that roast, though Lorien barely touches it. It doesn't matter. It's part of the ritual, as much a part of me as waking at 6 before bed. I pull out the old photo albums. Oliver and me, young and smiling on our wedding day. Little Hamish, knees scraped from falling off his bike, but grinning proudly. Family. Vacations, laughter by the sea. Were we as happy as I remember? Or am I only remembering the good parts? The next morning, I rise even earlier. I set the dining room table with care, even though we usually eat in the kitchen. Today feels formal. I use the good china, polish the silver, fluff the pancakes, and check the roast. At 8:45, the table is perfect. At 8:45, the doorbell rings. Hamish is early. He always is. I smooth my hair, fix a smile, and open the door. "Mum." He kisses my cheek, smelling of the expensive cologne I bought him. Lorien slips past me, not bothering with a hug. She's dressed in something far too fine for a simple breakfast at her mother-in-law's. Something smells burnt. Are her first words. My heart sinks as I rush to the kitchen. One pancake has indeed blackened. I toss it out quickly. It's fine. I've got plenty more. When I return, Hamish is seated at the head of the table, Oliver's seat. Lorien is surveying the photos on the wall as though they've appeared there overnight. These frames are so outdated, she remarks. You really should update the decor, Giovanna. This whole house feels like it's stuck in the last century. I set down the plates, my voice steady. I like my house the way it is. Hamish clears his throat, leans forward, and clasps his hands. His tone is careful, but I already know what's coming. See, Mom, that's what we wanted to talk about. About the house. I freeze, pancakes in hand. What do you mean? He speaks slowly, as if explaining something simple to a child. You realize this house is too big for you alone, Lorien, and I thought you'd be better off in something more compact. Maybe one of those senior apartments on Maple Street. Elderly, I echo quietly, feeling my heart sink. Lorien nods briskly. It's perfect for people your age. Staff on hand, everything set up for comfort. We'd visit every week like we do now. I almost laugh. Once a month, if I'm lucky. And the house? I ask, though the answer is already clear. Hamish tries to sound casual, but I see the hunger in his eyes. We could move here. We need more space, especially if we decide to have a baby. In 12 years, they've never spoken seriously about children. Suddenly now they want one. How convenient. I'll think about it, I say, placing the pancakes firmly on the table. Let's eat breakfast before it gets cold. Hamish looks disappointed by my reaction, but doesn't insist yet. Lorien takes one pancake and pushes the plate away. I'm on a diet, she explains, only proteins and vegetables. I look at her thin arms and protruding collarbones. She's already too thin. Breakfast passes in tense silence. Hamish tries to fill it with talk about his store, his expansion plans, the new line of merchandise he's about to order. I nod and smile in all right places. But there's a feeling growing inside me that I haven't felt in a very long time. Anger. Pure hot anger that I've always suppressed. Anger at the son who sees me only as a wallet and a housekeeper. Anger at my daughter-in-law who never hid her disdain. At myself for letting it go on for years. After breakfast, Hamish brings up the house again. He's already been in contact with a real estate agent already looking at apartments for me. It's all set. All that's left is for him to say yes. You'll be better off there, Mom says. Less worries, more socializing with your peers. And my garden, I ask. You'll have a balcony, Lorien replies with fake enthusiasm. You can put a couple of pots of whatever you like. I look out the window at my garden, at the roses I've been growing for decades, the oak tree that Oliver and I planted when we moved into this house, the bench under the apple tree where I read books on summer evenings. I need time to think about it, I say. It's a big decision. Sure, Mom. Hamish pats my arm, but don't take too long. Those apartments go fast. When they leave, I stand at the window and watch their new car pull out of the yard. Last month, Hamish asked me for money to renovate the store. Apparently, it went to other things. I call Meredith and tell her I'm coming to the book club after all. I need to get out of the house, get some fresh air. She can hear the tension in my voice. What's wrong? I'll tell you when I see you, I say. And yes, I'll bring lemon pie as I need the pie dough. Thoughts swirl in my head. Maybe they're right. Maybe I really should move to Asmorna Place. I'm getting older and it's getting harder to maintain a big house. But then I look at Oliver's picture and I think I see him shaking his head. This house is our home. It's where every corner holds memories. I can feel his presence here. And then it hits me. It's not about my well-being. It's about the house, the inheritance, the money that Oliver left behind. They just want it now, not until I'm dead. I put pie in the oven and went to Oliver's office. He's always been pedantic about things, and all the papers are kept in perfect order. The will is in the top drawer of the desk. I pull out the folder and reread the document I know almost by heart. Oliver left everything to me, including my house, bank accounts, and pension. When I die, everything is to go to Hamish. It's a standard will, nothing out of the ordinary. That Hamish doesn't want to wait. He wants it all now. I close the file and put it back in the drawer. For the first time in a long time, I feel a strange calm. It's as if a decision I haven't consciously made yet is already maturing somewhere deep inside. At book club, I barely participate in the discussion. My pie is praised. I'm asked good questions, but I answer absent-mindedly. After the meeting, Meredith takes me aside. What's wrong with you? You haven't been yourself today. I tell her about my conversation with Hamish and Lorien. She listens with her lips pressed together, resentment growing in her eyes. It's outrageous, she says finally. They have no right to treat you like this. This is your home. They think they know what's best for me. I reply, though I don't believe it myself. Nonsense, Meredith snorts. They're only thinking about themselves. They always have. She's right. It's always been like this, and I've always let it be. But maybe it's time for a change. When I come home, I notice that the sun is setting differently than usual. Or maybe I'm just looking at the world through different eyes. For the first time in a long time, I feel not tired, not humbled, but determined. In the evening, I sit in the garden among my flowers and think about the future. My future, not Hamish's or Lauren's. What do I really want? What do I deserve? I deserve respect. I deserve joy. I deserve freedom from manipulation and guilt. My gaze falls on a travel magazine I've subscribed to for years, but never acted on its offerings. On the cover are the ancient ruins of Machu Picchu, illuminated by the dawn sun. I've always dreamed of seeing this place. Oliver promised we'd go there for our 40th anniversary. We didn't make it. Maybe it's time to fulfill that dream ourselves. I flip through the magazine and suddenly the future begins to seem exciting rather than frightening. Possibilities I had never seriously considered now seem very real. When I finally go to bed, a plan is already forming in my head. Not a clear one, still blurry, but already with concrete routines. A plan in which I finally become the protagonist of my own life. I fall asleep with a smile, looking at Oliver's picture. I have a feeling he will approve. A week has passed since Hamish and Lorien's visit. I hadn't heard back from them, and they hadn't called. Probably to give me time to think about their offer. But my thinking was not at all what they had hoped. For on Wednesday morning, I closed the door of the house behind me at 8 o'clock, not usual time for going out. In my bag was a folder of papers I'd been collecting for the past 2 years. It had started shortly after Oliver's death, when Hamish had first hinted that the house was too big for me alone. I'd brushed off his words then, but something inside me clicked. The intuition I'd so often ignored whispered in that moment, "Get ready." And so I began to prepare quietly, methodically, without haste. My first visit was to Aaron Tyndale, the lawyer who had handled Oliver's cases during his lifetime. His office was in an old brick building in downtown Rexburg. The receptionist ushered me into the office where Aaron greeted me with the same warm smile he always had. "Giovanna, good to see you." He stood up from his desk and shook my hand. "What can I do for you?" I put the file on the table. "I need some advice, Aaron." "Confidential." He nodded and sat back down, gesturing for me to do the same. Of course, anything we discuss will stay between us. I took a deep breath. I want to know my rights to the house, to the accounts, to whatever's left of Oliver. Hamish has started to take too much interest in the inheritance. Aaron didn't look surprised. He opened the folder and looked through the documents, nodding occasionally. Legally, the situation is clear. Giovanna, it's all yours. Oliver has left you the full right to dispose of that property as you see fit during your lifetime. The only restriction is on the posthumous transfer. In Oliver's will, everything must pass to Hamish when you do. What if I want to sell the house? That's your right. Aaron looked at me over his glasses. You can sell the house and spend all the proceeds on a trip around the world if you want. Legally, Hamish couldn't stop you. I nodded, feeling oddly relieved. What if I want to change my will here? Aaron frowned. It's more complicated than that. Oliver included a clause in his will that makes it difficult to change the order of inheritance. Not impossible, but it would take time and could lead to litigation. I don't want to change the will, I said after a pause. I just want to know my options. You have options, Giovanna. You can dispose of your assets during your lifetime, however you wish. Sell it, gift it, spend it. Oliver trusted you, and the law is on your side. After my meeting with Aaron, I visited one more place, a small office on the edge of town, where the World Without Borders travel agency was located. The owner of the agency, Elena Kestrel, greeted me like an old acquaintance, even though had only seen each other a few times. Giovanna, are you here to inquire about those Peru tours we talked about? I nodded, sitting down in the chair across from her desk. And not just about them. I need a new passport. Mine expired 2 years ago, and I never thought I'd need it again. Sure, I'll help you with that paperwork. Elena pulled out the forms and put them in front of me. Fill out these forms and I'll send everything out. The process usually takes about 3 weeks, but I can request an expedited review. I started filling out the forms, feeling strangely excited, like I was signing a pass to a new life. Now, tell me more about Machu Picchu, I asked when I was finished with the paperwork. Eleanor's eyes lit up. Oh, it's an amazing place. I've been there twice. It's not just ancient ruins, it's... She struggled for words. It's a place of power. When you stand there high up in the mountains, in the clouds, surrounded by ancient stones that remember entire civilizations, it changes something inside you. I listened, mesmerized. Oliver had told similar stories. He'd always wanted to go there. I want to book a tour, I said firmly. A single room, and I'd like to go as soon as I get my passport. From the travel agency, I went to the bank. The manager, Mr. Pierce, had known me for years. I'd been coming here with Oliver. Mrs. Fellows, what can I do for you today? I'd like to discuss my accounts, I said, sitting down across from him. And international transfer options. Mr. Pierce's eyebrows rose slightly, but he kept his expression professional. Of course. Are you planning any major expenditures of ours? You could say that. I looked him straight in the eye. I want to know how to safely transfer a significant amount of money to an account in another country, and how I can access that money from outside the United States. Mr. Pierce nodded and began to explain the options. International wire transfers, special cards for travelers, foreign currency accounts. I listened intently, taking notes in the small notebook I always carried with me. And one more question, I said when he was done. Does me son have access to my accounts? No, Mrs. Fellows. We have no information about joint accounts or powers of attorney in your son's name. Okay. I'd like to open a new account in my name only. The next thing on my schedule was a visit to the realtor. I chose an agency that didn't work with Hamish. I mentioned the name of another company. The reliable real estate office was in a modern building near the center of town. Torin Dubner appeared to be a middle-aged man with shrewd eyes and confident movements. He shook my hand and motioned for me to sit down. Mrs. Fellows, I have reviewed the information you provided over the phone. Your home is in a very attractive neighborhood, and from the photos it appears to be in excellent condition. Thank you. My husband and I have always kept an eye on it. You said you wanted to have it appraised for a possible sale. I nodded. Yes. I need to know its market value. I'm also interested in how quickly I cancel it if I decide to take that step. Torin took out a notebook and started making notes. At the right price and given the state of the market, the sale could take 1 to 3 months. Maybe sooner if we find a motivated buyer. As for an appraisal, I'll need to see the house in person. When would that be convenient for you? Tomorrow, perhaps. I suggested tomorrow. 10 o'clock in the morning. Great. Torin made a note on his calendar. I'll be at your place at 10 o'clock. In the evening, I decided to walk the neighboring streets, something I hadn't done in a long time. Rexburg was a small town where everyone knew each other. I nodded to acquaintances, stopping for a brief conversation with neighbors. No one knew about my plans, about the storm that was simmering inside me. As I passed Hamish's electric store, I slowed my step. The Fellows' electronic sign glowed dimly in the dusk. It wasn't crowded inside, just a couple customers looking at the merchandise. Behind the counter stood Hamish himself, talking to a man in a business suit. They looked tense, and Hamish was nervously thumbing through some papers. I continued walking, not wanting him to notice me. But this brief scene got me thinking. Perhaps business at the store was worse than I thought. That would explain his sudden interest in my house and inheritance. When I reached the end of the street, I turned back and then I saw them. Haish and Lorianne were coming out of the store. He was locking the door and she was standing next to him, tapping her foot impatiently. I can't go on like this, Hamish. I heard her sharp voice say, drowning. You promised that things would get better, that every month they get worse. Quiet, he hissed, looking away. We'll solve this problem. Mum has money, lots of money. We just need Tohat. Wait for her to die? Lauren didn't lower her voice. She could live another 20 years. We can't wait that long. We won't wait. Hamish replied, opening the car door. I already told you about the plan. If she sells the house and moves out, we can manage her finances. She's not good at this. We'll convince her she needs an assistant. And if she doesn't, she will, Hamish said confidently. She always does what I say. She always does. I quickly retreated into the shadows as they got into the car and drove away. My heart was pounding, but not with fear or resentment. It was anger. Pure cold anger. This is how they saw me. An old stupid woman to be manipulated. A source of money to solve their problems. Not Amatha, not a person with dreams and desires. At home, I pulled another folder from the stash I'd made in my bedroom closet. It contained the paperwork for the Cayman Islands account he'd opened a year ago. The small amount I'd transferred there each month had turned into a sizable reserve. Not enough to live luxuriously, but enough to ensure my independence for several years. The next day at 10 o'clock sharp, Torrance Dabner arrived. He inspected the house thoroughly, taking notes and photographs of every room. The garden particularly impressed him. It's stunning, Mrs. Fellows, he said, looking at the rose garden. Did you create all this yourself? Yes, it's the work of many years, I replied proudly. After the tour, we sat in the kitchen, and Torin showed me the preliminary calculations. Given the house's size, condition, location, and current market, I'd value it at about $650,000. Maybe even more if there was a buyer who appreciated the garden. The sum was impressive, more than I had expected, together with what was already set. Aside in Oliver's pension, I could live very comfortably. How soon could we put it on the market? I asked. As soon as you sign the contract with the agency. I can have the paperwork ready within a few days. Do that, please? I said, feeling my pulse quicken. I wanted to move quickly. That evening, I called my long-team acquaintance, Roger Barkley. He was a financial advisor that Oliver had always trusted. Giovanna, it's good to hear from you, he said. What can I do for you? Roger, do you remember that account we opened last year? I want to transfer a large sum of money into it. A very large amount. Pause. Then, are you sure this is an unusual move? I'm absolutely sure I'm going to sell the house, and I don't want that money ending up in a regular bank. Does Hamish know about this? Yen, and I'd rather hadn't. Roger sighed. Giovanna, I'm not asking about your motives, but I need to be sure you understand the consequences. This is a significant step. I thought this through, Roger. This is not an impulsive decision. It's a good one. I'll make the necessary arrangements. When do you plan to sell? In the next few weeks, if everything goes according to plan. After talking to Roger, I felt a strange calmness. The plan was taking shape, becoming real. For the first time in a long time, I felt in control of my life. The next day, I met Lorien at a cafe. She'd invited me to lunch, which was rare. Usually, our meetings were limited to visits to my house where I cooked food that she barely tasted. Giovanna. She faked a smile as I sat down across from her. How nice of you to be able to come. Your invitation was unexpected, I said, unwrapping my napkin. Did something happen? No, I just thought we should talk woman to woman. I tensed inwardly but kept my expression neutral. About what? A booth future. Lorien sipped her coffee, watching me carefully over her cup. Hamish is worried about you. We both are. This big house, all the worries. It's too much for a woman your age. My age? I said again. How old do you think I am? Well, she was a little embarrassed. You know what I mean? You're not getting any younger. None of us are. Really. Hamish only wants the best for you. She continued. We both do. This apartment he was talking about. It's really great. It's got everything you need, and a staff to help if you need anything. What about the house? I asked bluntly. Lorien smiled, not realizing that I already knew their plans. We could move in there temporarily, of course, just so it wouldn't be empty. And we could help you with the finances. Hamish is good at that. I could barely contain my laughter. Hamish, who couldn't run his own store without my help, was going to handle my finances. That's very thoughtful of you, I said, cutting off a piece of salad. I appreciate your concern, but as I told Hamish, I need time to think. Of course, Lorien nodded, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Just don't take too long. Apartments like this go fast. As I drove home from the meeting, I thought about how easy it was for them to think I was naive. How sure they were that they could manipulate me, use me, and how wrong they were. That evening, I pulled out the old jewelry box where I kept my most prized pieces of jewelry, Oliver's gifts. Family heirlooms. Some of it I'd take with me, but most of it I'd have to sell or leave in a safety deposit box. I couldn't let them fall into Hamish and Lorien's hands. Looking at the ring Oliver had given me for our 20th anniversary, I felt a prick of regret. Not about what I'd planned to doff it, I didn't regret, but about the fact that my only son had turned out to be Solium, so far from the values Oliver and I had tried to instill in him. That their grey didn't last long. I closed the box and put it back in its hiding place. The plan was ready, and the first steps had been taken. Now I had to wait for the right moment for the final act. And that moment I sensed was near. Hamish called the night before. His voice sounded tense with that peculiar intonation I'd learned to recognize over the years. He was up to something. Mum, Lorien and I are coming over for breakfast tomorrow. We need to finalize your move. Okay, dear, I answered calmly. Would 9 o'clock suit you? Yes, and please make those blueberry pancakes alike. I smiled into the phone. He wasn't even trying to hide the fact that breakfast was just an excuse. Sure. I'll be waiting. I barely slept that night, not because of worry or fear, but because my mind was spinning with the details of the plan I'd been hatching for the past weeks. I checked and double-checked every step, every action, especially what was going to happen after breakfast. In the morning, I got up earlier than usual. I put on my best dress, the navy blue dress with a small floral pattern that Oliver had always loved. I carefully styled my hair, even put on a little makeup. If this was going to be my last breakfast with my son, I wanted to look decent. I made blueberry pancakes, fresh coffee, cut-up fruit. I set the dining room table with the best china. The same china Oliver and I had gotten as a wedding gift. That china I hadn't planned on taking with me. At 15 to 9, I heard a car pull up. They always arrived either too early or too late. Today it was early. That was good for me. I opened the door before they could ring the bell. Hamish looked surprised. I usually made them wait a few seconds. Mum. He leaned over and kissed my cheek. He smelled of expensive college and the faintest whiff of alcohol. Apparently he'd taken liquid courage the night before. Good morning, darling. I smiled and turned. To Lorien. Good morning, Lauren. She nodded, not even bothering with a formal hug. Something smells good, she said, walking into the house. Blueberry panks like Hamish asked for. We went into the dining room. Hamish sat at the head of the table, Oliver's seat. It always annoyed me, but today I just smiled. Coffee, I offered, picking up the coffee pot. Yes, please. Hamish held out the cup. I noticed his hand was trembling slightly. Lorien silently accepted her portion of coffee, glancing at her watch. She always looked at their clock in my presence, as if every minute with me was wasted time. We started breakfast in awkward silence. Hamish devoured the pancakes with an atypical appetite. Lorien barely touched her food and I sipped my coffee, slowly watching them. So Hamish finally spoke, pushing his empty plate away. Mom, it's been 2 weeks since we talked about you moving. Yes, dear. I sipped more coffee. Time flies. Have you thought about our offer? He leaned forward with his hands on the table. Yes, I've given it a lot of thought. Menusi Lorien intervened impatiently. I looked at her with a slight smile. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not ready to move in yet. Hamish's face tensed. He glanced over at Lorien, and I saw her nod faintly. Mom. His voice got harder. We found the perfect apartment for you. Small, cozy, with stuff to help if you need it. But we have to give you an answer by the end of the week. I'm sorry for your time, I said, but I prefer to stay in my house. Hamish took a deep breath, clearly holding back his irritation. This house is too big for you alone. You can't handle its upkeep. That's obvious to anyone who sees the state of the garden. That was a low blow. My garden was in perfect condition and he knew it. Besides, he continued, with your health? There's nothing wrong with my health, I interrupted calmly. I can manage the house and the garden just fine. Mother, be reasonable. His tone became patronizing. You're not getting any younger. You need help, even if you won't admit it. I looked him straight in the eye. Hamish, I appreciate your concern, But I'm not moving, and this is my final decision. His face darkened. He glanced again at Lauren, and she nodded with a determined look. All right, he said, and his voice turned cold. Since you insist, I'll have to go to Plan B. He got up, went out into the hallway, and came back with a leather folder. I knew it contained a copy of Oliver's will. Hamish put the folder on the table and placed his hand on it defiantly. You've apparently forgotten that this house passes to me when you do. But I can speed up the process. Really? I raised my eyebrows, remaining calm. How? I could file a suit to have you declared incompetent. I have evidence of your erratic behavior lately. Secret meetings, odd financial trances. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was he following me, or was he bluffing? Then the court will appoint me your guardian. Hamish continued with Asmug. Smile, and I'll make all the decisions for you, including the decision to sell the house. Lauren looked at me with a triumphant look. They had clearly rehearsed this scene. In that case, Hamish added, pressing Hishan on the folder, you won't get a penny. And okay, I interrupted him with a smile. What? He blinked, confused. I said, "Kay." I stood up, still smiling. If you want this house so much, it's yours. I won't get in the way. Hamish and Lorien looked at each other in confusion. They had clearly expected tears, pleading, maybe anger, but not this calm acceptance. Mum, you... Hamish stammered. Do you realize what I just said? Absolutely. I folded the napkin neatly and placed it next to the plate. You're threatening to incapacitate me if I don't obey your wishes. I understand perfectly. And you are okay with that? Lorien asked incredulously. No, I shook my head. No, I shook my head. But I'm not going to fight you for this house or the money. It's yours. Take it. With that, I turned and walked out of the dining room, leaving them completely confused. Going up to my bedroom, I closed the door and immediately pulled out my cell phone. Not the one Hamish knew about, but the spare one I bought especially for this occasion. I dialed Torrance Dobner's number. Minus Mr. Dobner. Giovanna Fellows. We need to expedite the sale of the house today. Today? He sounded surprised. It's possible, but it will require extra effort and possibly a price reduction. Price isn't the issue. Speed is and confidentiality. I see. I have a potential buyer who has expressed serious interest. I'll contact them immediately. Cell phone rings. Great, I'll be expecting your call. The next call was to Aaron Tyndale. Aaron, it started. Hamish just threatened to declare me incompetent. Did you record the conversation? No, but he literally put his hand on the will and said, I wouldn't get a penny. It's not enough for a trial, but it confirms your fears. Are you ready to proceed with the plan? Yes. I'll contact a realtor to expedite its sale. Then I'll withdraw the money from the accounts. Be careful. If Hamish has really been following you, he may try to interfere. I'll be careful. After I finished talking, I pulled a suitcase out of the closet. It contained everything I needed for my new life. A minimum of clothes, important documents, a few photos of Oliver, and my most valuable jewelry. Everything else I planned to buy in the new place. I heard the front door slam downstairs. I looked out the window and saw Hamish and Lorien getting into the car. They looked puzzled, even confused. My reaction had clearly ruined their plans. As soon as their car was around the corner, I sprang into action. The first thing I did was to call a cab company and book a car for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I gathered any remaining documents I might need. Insurance policies, medical records, birth and marriage certificates. The phone rang. Torrance Dobner, Mrs. Fellows. Good news. The buyers agreed to the deal. He can meet you today at 2 o'clock in My office to sign the preliminary documents. That's great. I'll be there. I decided to go to the bank right after my meeting with the realtor. It had to be all in one day. Selling the house, withdrawing the money, leaving. I couldn't risk giving Hamish time to reconsider and retaliate. I walked around the house one more time before I left, saying goodbye to every room, every corner that held memories of my life with Oliver. I stayed in the bedroom the longest, looking at the picture of us together. I'm sorry to leave our home, I whispered. But you would understand. You always did. At 2, I hailed a cab to the realtor's office. The driver helped me with my suitcase without asking questions. Not many people asked questions in Rexburg, a small town where everyone respects other people's privacy. Torrance Dubner met me in the lobby of his office. Mrs. Fellows, the buyer is here. He's very interested and is willing to pay the full asking price. Great, I said as I followed him into the conference room. The buyer was a middle-aged businessman, Mr. Winther, who had recently moved to Rexburg. He was looking for a large home for his growing family and was fascinated by my garden. My wife loves gardening, he said as he signed the papers. Your roses have made a lasting impression on her. I felt a pang of sadness at the thought of someone else tending my roses, but it was a light sadness. My flowers will be in good hands. The signing took less than an hour. Mr. Winther agreed to all my terms, including expedited closing and confidentiality until the house was transferred. He didn't even haggle over the price, which was rare in our small town. The papers will be ready by tomorrow morning, Torrance said when we were done. But given the special circumstances, Mr. Winther has agreed to put down a substantial deposit today. Mr. Winther nodded and pulled out his checkbook. How much would you like to receive now, Mrs. Fellows? 50,000 will be enough, I answered. The rest after the formalities are completed. He wrote the check without hesitation. I thanked him and put the check in my purse, feeling my pulse quicken. This was really happening. I was really selling the house and moving out. From the realtor's office, I went straight to the bank. Mr. Pierce greeted me with his usual professional smile, but I noticed the surprise in his eyes when he saw the suitcase. Mrs. Fellows, how can I help you today? I'd like to cash this check. I handed him the deposit from M.R. Winthrop, and to withdraw a substantial amount from my accounts. He studied their check, then looked at me with slight concern. That's a lot of money to withdraw in cash. May I ask about their purpose? Travel, I answered simply. A long trip? Mr. Pierce nodded, but I could see he wasn't quite convinced. Of course. It will take us some time for such sums. Would you mind waiting in my office? I agreed and followed him into a small room overlooking the main street of Rexburg. Sitting there, I involuntarily thought about Hamish. What is he doing now? Discussing with Lorien about his next move. Is he consulting with a lawyer to have me declared incompetent? Or is he still confused by my unexpected reaction? 20 minutes later, Mr. Pierce returned with an envelope and a stack of papers. Here's your money, Mrs. Fellows. 50,000 in cash as you requested, and the paperwork to transfer the remainder to your account in the Cayman Islands. Thank you. I took the envelope and began to sign the papers. Mrs. Fellows, Mr. Pierce spoke more softly. I have no right to interfere in your affairs, but as someone who has known you and your husband for many years, is everything all right? I looked at him with gratitude for his concern. Yes, Mr. Pierce. Everything's more than all right. I've just decided to, change my life. He nodded, not asking any more questions. As I left the bank, I checked the time. 4:30. The cab was due in half an hour. I had time for one last visit. Meredith's flower store was 2 blocks from the bank. The bell above the door jingled as I entered, and my friend looked up from the bouquet she was arranging. Giovanna? She smiled, but the smile was quickly replaced by surprise at the sight of my suitcase. "What's going on?" "I'm leaving, Meredith," I said as I approached the counter. "Today you're leaving." "Where? Why so suddenly?" I told her about this morning's conversation with Hamish and Lorien, about selling the house, above money. She listened without interrupting, her face growing serious. "You really made up your mind," she said at last. "I'm proud of you, but I'm going to miss you." "Me too," I hugged her. "You're the only thing I'll regret leaving Rexburg." "Will you tell me where you're going?" I shook my head. "I can't yet. Not because I don't trust you. You know I don't. But Hamish might try to find out from you." Meredith nodded understandingly. "Be careful, Giovanna. And let me know when you're settled, just so I know you're safe." "I promise." We hugged again, and I felt tears come to my eyes. Meredith had been my best friend for over 20 years. Leaving her was almost assured as leaving home. "I have to go," I said, pulling away. "The cab will be waiting." "Wait." Meredith quickly gathered a small bouquet of white roses. "My favorite. Take it. A memento of your garden." I accepted the flowers. To shed be her gesture. "Thank you for everything." As I left the store, I saw a cab waiting. The driver helped me with my suitcase, and I sat in the back seat with Meredith's bouquet next to me. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the bus station, please." As we drove away, I didn't look back at Meredith's store. I didn't want my last memory of Rexburg to be tears. As the cab moved through the familiar streets, I thought about what I was leaving behind. The house, the garden, the friends, the memories, and Hamish, the son, who was no longer the boy Oliver and I had loved so much. But there was a new life ahead, a life without manipulation and guilt, a life in which I was the protagonist, not an extra in someone else's play. When the cab stopped at the bus station, I paid the driver and picked up my only suitcase. I held Meredith's white roses in my free hand. Inside the station, I bought a ticket for the next bus to Salt Lake City. From there, I planned to fly to Miami and then on to Peru. It was a long route, but that's what I needed to do to cover my tracks in case Hamish decided to look for me. Sitting in the waiting room, I suddenly realized I was smiling. Not because of revenge on Hamish, though the thought of his face when he found out he'd sold the house was definitely satisfying. I was smiling because I felt truly free for the first time in years. When they announced boarding for my bus, I stood up, grabbed my suitcase and bouquet, and headed forth platform exit. Each step took me further away from my past life and closer to my new one. I didn't know what was ahead of me, but I knew one thing. I would never return to Rexburg. Never again. Hamish Fellows drummed his fingers in the steering wheel, waiting for Lorien to leave the house. They hadn't been there in a week. Not since that strange breakfast when his mother had so abruptly agreed to his ultimatum, and then simply left the room. He decided to give her time, let her cool down, make sense of the situation, realize she had no choice. Mother had always been stubborn, but in the end she always gave in. Always. Lorien finally left their apartment, slamming the door harder than necessary. Her face showed irritation, as it usually did lately. "She hasn't answered her cell phone in a week," Lorien said, as she got into the car. "Not even the answering machine." "No." Hamish started the engine. "That's why we're going to her place. Maybe she's sick or something's happened. Or maybe she's just ignoring us." Hamish shook his head. "Mom wouldn't sulk that long. She could never stay mad at me for long." Lorien snorted but remained silent. All the way to Giovanna's house they didn't speak. The tension between them grew every day, especially after that unfortunate breakfast. Lorien blamed Hamish for pushing his mother too hard. Hamish blamed Lorien for pushing him toward confrontation. As they pulled up to the house, Hamish immediately noticed that something was wrong. The usually immaculately manicured front lawn looked neglected. The mailbox was full. "Weird," he muttered, getting out of the car. They went to the door and Hamish rang the bell. There was no answer. He rang again, then started knocking. "Mum, it's me, Hamish. Open up, please." No answer. "Maybe she's going somewhere," Lorien suggested. "To a friend's house or something." "Without telling me." Hamish shook his head. "Impossible." He pulled a bunch of keys out of his pocket and chose the one that matched his mother's house. The door opened easily. "Mom," he called, entering the hallway. "Are you home?" The house was quiet and empty, but that wasn't what struck Hamish and Laurian. There was no furniture in the living room. None at all. Bare walls. Bare floor. What the? Hashi rushed into the dining room. Same picture. Kitchen empty. He ran up the stairs to his mother's bedroom. The bed was gone. That closet's open and empty. "Hey, Mish," Lorien shouted from downstairs. "Come here quickly." He ran down the stairs and found Lorien in the study that used to belong to his father. She was holding an envelope. Found it on the floor. "Here's your name." Hamish snatched the envelope from her hands and tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper and a house key. "Dear Hamish," the note read, written in Giovanna's neat handwriting. "By the time you read this, I will be far away. The house is sold. The new owners will move in 2 weeks. Please don't bother them. Everything you last saw in the house has been sold with it, or given to charity. I'm leaving you a key. Please get your children's things from the garage if you need them. Goodbye, Mom." Hamish reread the note 3 times before the meaning of what was written reached him. "She sold the house," he said, hardly believing his own words. "Sold it and left." "What?" Lauren snatched the note and ran her eyes over it. "She couldn't have. She couldn't have. It's our house. Technically, it was her house." Hamish sank to the floor, his legs suddenly weak, and she had every right to sell it. But where had she gone? Where could she have gone? Hamish shook his head, stunned. "I don't know. She never had any friends outside of Rexburg. Unless Meredith, her friend from the flower store. She should know. They went immediately to Meredith's flower store." The bell above the door jingled as they entered, and Meredith looked up from the bouquet she was putting together. Her smile disappeared when she saw who had come in. "Hamish, Lorien, what can I do for you? Where's my mother?" Hamish approached the counter, his voice shaking with restrained anger. "I have no idea," Meredith replied, returning to her bouquet. "Don't lie to me. You're best friends. She must have told you where she was going." Meredith looked at him with a cold smile. "Even if she had, I wouldn't share that information with you. Look," Hamish lowered his voice, trying to sound reasonable. "I'm worried about her. She's not young. She might have health problems. I just need to know that she's okay. She's perfectly fine." Meredith cut her off. "Or rather, she'd be fine now that she's rid of you too." Lauren stepped forward, her face red with anger. "How dare you get out of my store?" Meredith interrupted her. "Both of you now, or I'm calling the police." Hamish grabbed Lorien's arm, keeping her from further confrontation. "Let's go. She won't tell us anything." They walked outside, seething with anger and confusion. "What now?" Lorien asked. "Where could she have gone?" "I don't know." Hamish ran his hand through his hair. "But we have a bigger problem. If she sold the house, what about the money? Her father's inheritance." They hurried to the bank where Giovanna kept her accounts. The manager, Mr. Pierce, received them in his office, but his usually friendly face remained impenetrable. Minus Mr. Fellows, I understand your concern, but I can't discuss your mother's financial affairs with you. That's privileged information. She's my mother, exclaimed Hamish. And she's Usher's not herself. She left without telling me where she was going. Sold the house without warning. That's not normal. Mrs. Fellows seemed perfectly sane to me the last time I saw her. Mr. Pierce replied calmly. Unless she's given you power of attorney, which I know she hasn't, I have no right to give you any information about her account stock. When was the last time you saw her? Lorien asked quickly. Mr. Pierce hesitated for a moment. I can't even discuss that. I'm sorry. They left there being even more anxious than before. She planned the whole thing. Hamish slammed his fist on the steering wheel as they got into the car. All this time when we thought she was just being stubborn about moving, she was preparing to disappear and take all the money with her. Lorien added, God, Hamish, what are we going to do? The bank won't give us an extension on the loan, and the rent for the store is due next week. Hamish suddenly froze. The rent? My God, the rent? He started the car abruptly and sped off. Where are we going? Lauren asked, grabbing the door handle. To the mall. To my store. When they arrived, Hamish went straight to the mall manager's office. Mr. Grant, an older man with a perpetually tired look, looked up from his papers as Hamish entered his office without knocking. Minus Mr. Fellows, what can I do for you? Yeah, tell me. Hamish tried to speak calmly. Who's been paying the rent in my store for the last, say, 2 years? Mr. Grant frowned. That's a strange question. You, of course. Did I personally come in with the money, or did they come by wire transfer? Or perhaps from my mother? The manager leaned back in his chair, his face wary. Minus Mr. Fellows. What's going on? Just answer the question, please. Mr. Grant sighed and opened a desk drawer. He pulled out a file folder and flipped through it. For the last year and a half, the rent has been paid by wire transfer. Before that, he turned a few more pages. Yes, Mrs. Fellows brought cash. Always at the beginning of the month. Always the exact amount. Hamish felt the blood drain from his face. And how much? How much more payable up front until the end of this month? The next payment is due on the 1st of the month. Hamish staggered and Lorien took him under her arm. Thank you, Mr. Grant, she said. We appreciate your help. They walked out of the office in silence. Only in the car did Hamish finally speak. She's been paying for my store all this time, and I didn't even know. That explains why we've been making ends meet despite the drop in sales, Lorien said quietly. But now we're totally screwed. Hamish finished. No money for rent, no way to sell a house that, as it turns out, was never mine. His phone rang, interrupting his tirade. The number was unlisted. Hello, he answered abruptly. Mum, Mr. Fellows. It was an unfamiliar male voice. It's Winthrop. I bought your mother's house. Hamish almost dropped the phone. You what? Bought the house from Mrs. Fellows. She said you could get your stuff out of the garage, but my family and I are moving in a week. So, could you do it in the next few days? Yes, of course. Hamish spoke on autopilot, his brain refusing to process the information. Great. Just leave the key in the mailbox when you're done. The call ended and Hamish stared at the phone as if it was some kind of alien artifact. Who? Why's that? Lorien asked. The man who bought my mother's house, replied Hamish in a hollow voice. They're moving in a week. Lorien covered her face with her hands. Oh my God, Hamish, what are we going to do? Hadn't answer. Didn't know what to say. That evening, sitting in their small apartment, they tried to realize the magnitude of The disaster. Hamish called his mother every half hour, but her phone was disconnected. He left messages in the answering machine, first angry, then pleading. "Mum, please call me back. We need to talk. Mum, I don't understand why you did this. Please explain. Mum, we're in a desperate situation. The store is on the verge of closing. I need your help. I need your help. Please." Lauren sat on the couch looking at their bank accounts on her laptop. Her face was getting darker by the minute. "Hamish," she finally said, "we have less than $1,000 left in our account. The rent on the apartment is $800. The store is another $2,000 plus utilities. Food. We won't last a month." "I know." He sank down beside her. "Maybe the bank will give us a loan. With your credit history, I doubt it. Then I'll ask my friends." Lorien laughed bitterly. "What friends, Hamish? You've been pushing Gavrion away for years. Too busy with your store to keep in touch. It wastes you, and they both knew it." Hamish was always focused on his business, on money, on status. Friends had taken a back seat and then disappeared from his life altogether. "Your family?" he offered weakly. "My parents are barely making ends meet on their pensions, and my sister just had her second child. They don't have any extra money." They sat in silence, each absorbed in his own thoughts. Suddenly, Lorien raised her head. "Wait a minute. What about the insurance? Your father had to keep the insurance, right?" Hamish felt a glimmer of hope. "Yes. Dad was always careful about that sort of thing. There must be insurance. Who's the beneficiary?" "I'm not sure." Hamish frowned. "Probably Mom. But if she disappeared, we could file a petition to declare her missing," Lorien said quickly. "Through the courts it takes time, but she's not missing." Hamish interrupted her. She had obviously planned her departure and shelved a note. No court is going to declare her missing. The hope that had just flared up faded. "Damn it," Lorien said. "She set us up good. We set her up," Hamish said quietly. "I threatened her. I told her I'd incapacitate her if she didn't give me the house, that she wouldn't get a dime." Lauren looked at him in surprise. It was the first signal of remorse on his part. "We're both to blame," she said after a pause. "I pushed you into this." They fell silent again. Lorien's phone buzzed. A message from her boss at the beauty parlor. "Oh no," she moaned, reading it. "Just what needed." "What is it?" "Mrs. Apprentice filed a complaint against me. Says I waltzed and messed up her hair. Boss wants to meet tomorrow morning." Hamish sighed. Mrs. Apprentice was one of the salon's most important clients. A wealthy widow who spent huge sums on beauty treatments. If she really complained, were you really rude to her? Lorien bit her lip. "Perhaps. I was upset after our conversation with your mother, and she complained that I didn't cut her bangs straight enough. I might have said something harsh, Laurie." Huss shook his head. "You know how important clients like that are to a salon. And you know that not everyone can keep emotions under control as well as your mother." She snapped back. "Some of us are living people with feelings." That was a low blow. Hamish jumped up from the couch. "Don't you dare talk about my mother. Not now when she's what?" Lauren picked up on it. "Ran away from us, left us penniless, ruined all plans." She was defending herself, shouted Hamish. "From us? From me?" That confession hung in the air between them. Lorien looked at her husband with wide-open eyes, unable to believe he had actually said it. "Hey, no." He shook his head. "Let's not. Not now." He grabbed his jacket and car keys. "Where are you going?" Lauren asked. "To get some air." "To think." He slammed the door, leaving her alone in the apartment. Lauren sat still for a few minutes, then opened the laptop again. Their financial situation was even worse than she'd told Hamish. Not a month. They could barely make it through 2 weeks with what they had left. Her phone rang. The boss's number. Hello, Laurian. Danielle. The salon owner's voice sounded strained. I'm sorry, but after talking to Mrs. Apprentice, I can't risk the reputation of the salon. I'm going to have to fire you. Laurian felt the ground slipping away from under her feet. Danielle, please. It was one mistake. I was frustrated with personal issues. I'm so sorry, Laurian. I really am. But the decision's been made. You can pick up your things tomorrow. The calended and Laurian dropped the phone on the couch. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Everything was falling apart. Everything she and Hamish had counted on was disappearing like a house of cards. She wiped away the tears and picked up Hamish's cell phone, which he'd left on the table in a hurry. She found Giovanna's number and dialed it. As expected, there was no answer. After the answering machine beeped, Laurian took a deep breath. Giovanna, this is Laurian. I know you don't want to talk to us, and maybe you have a right to. But please call us. At least tell us you're okay. Hamish. He's really worried. We're both worried. She was silent for a moment, then added more quietly. And Giovanna, I apologize. For everything. Please call me. She hung up knowing it was useless. Giovanna wouldn't call back. She had made it clear in her note she was out of their lives forever. Lauren went to the window and looked out onto the street where Hamish's car had just disappeared. Their lives were falling apart. Their store on the verge of closing. Her job lost, money almost gone. The house they were counting on sold. All because of their own greed and arrogance. Because they saw Giovanna not as a person, but as a means to their own ends. Hamish's phone rang again in her hand, an unfamiliar number. She answered with sudden hope. Hello, Giovanna. No, this is First National Rexburg. A male voice answered, calling about an overdue payment on Mr. Fellow's loan. Laurian closed her eyes. Of course, another loan Hamish hadn't told her about. He'll call you back, she said and hung up. She went back to the window and continued to stare out at the empty street. Somewhere out there in the big world, Giovanna Fellows was starting a new life. A life without manipulation and guilt. A life without them. And honestly, Laurian couldn't blame her for it. The mountain air of Peru is amazingly clean. Every breath fills my lungs with a freshness I hadn't felt in Rexburg. Sitting on the terrace of a small hotel in Cusco, I watched the first rays of sunlight color the ancient stones of the city golden. The altitude is 3,400 meters above sea level. The guide warned of possible mountain sickness, but I feel better than ever. Tomorrow begins a 2-day tour to Machu Picchu, a place Oliver and I have dreamed of for decades. I imagine he'd be sitting next to me right now, clutching a cup of delicate cocoa leaf tea that helps acclimatize. His eyes would glow with the same excitement I feel now. We made it, Giovanna. He would say we're finally here. That Oliver is gone. There's just me and my cup of tea, and the ancient city spread out at my feet, and a strange sense of freedom that hasn't left me since I got on the bus leaving Rexburg. My phone vibrates on the table. I know how it is without even looking at the screen. Hamish has been calling every day since he discovered my departure. At first, there were angry messages. How dare I? Who do I think I am? That he's going to sue me. Then the tone changed. He started begging, saying he was worried about my health. That he and Laurian needed my help. I didn't answer. There was no point. Everything I wanted to say had been said by my actions. But today, looking out at the majestic Andes Mountains, I feel I can afford a short answer. I pick up my phone and read the last message. Mum, Please at least tell us you're okay. We're worried. I know what we did was wrong, but you can't just disappear from our lives. We're family. Family. What a handy word to use when you need something. I type a short reply. You got exactly what you deserved. Then I turn the phone off. That's enough. Family bonding for today. It's a beautiful morning, isn't it? A British accented voice interrupts my thoughts. I look up and see an older gentleman standing at a nearby table. He is tall, trim, with a neatly trimmed grey beard and lively blue eyes. He is wearing a light linen suit and a Panama, the classic image of a British traveller. Delightful, I replied with a smile. May I join you? He points to the chair across from me. Algernon Bird, Whistly at your service. The name is so unusual that for a moment I think he's joking. Giovanna Fellows. I introduce myself. Please have a seat. He sinks gracefully into the chair despite his age, which I estimate at about 70 American. He asks, making a sign to the waiter. Yes. From Rexburg, a small town you've never heard of. Don't underestimate my knowledge of United States geography, Mrs. Fellows. Rexburg, Idaho, if I'm not mistaken. Although I must admit, I only know of it because I drove through it once while traveling through the national parks. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Impressive. Most Americans don't know where Rexburg is. Algernon orders Histia and turns to me with a smile. Are you here alone? Yes. I don't elaborate the circumstances of my journey. And you? Oh, I've been traveling alone for a long time. My wife Eleanor died 15 years ago. I've been on the move. Ever since. It's hard to stay in one place when the house seems too empty. I nod, understanding the feeling all too well. My husband Oliver died 4 years ago. My condolences. His voice is full of genuine sympathy. It never gets easier, does it? It's just different. Exactly. I agree. Different. We sit in comfortable since. Watching the city wake up. Then Algernon asks, Are you heading to Machu Picchu? Yes, tomorrow. What a coincidence. So, am I? Maybe we're in the same group. I pull out my itinerary. Andy's Explorer Company. 2-day tour with guide Carlos Mendez. Aldrin laughs and shows me the exact same sheet. Destiny, no other way. I'll be happy to share this adventure with a compatriot. We spend the morning talking about traveling. Algernon has traveled the world from the glaciers of Alaska to the deserts of Namibia. He tells fascinating stories without bragging, with humor and self-irony. You know, at my age, a lot of people sit in rocking chairs, reminiscing about the past, he says as we stroll through Costco's Central Square. I prefer to create new memories while I still can. I like that approach, I reply. I've put life on hold for too long. He looks at with understanding. But you're here now. That's what matters. In the evening, we have dinner together in a small restaurant serving traditional Peruvian food. I try the ceviche, raw fish marinated in lime juice, and am surprised at how good it is. Elena orders purple corn and fried bananas for us. At my age, you have to try everything, he says with a wink. Who knows how many more dinners we have left? It might sound gloomy, but he makes it sound like a life-affirming manifesto. After dinner, we say goodbye. Tomorrow is an early rise, and we both need to rest before traveling. See you tomorrow, Giovanna, Algernon says, kissing my hand in the European manner. Sweet dreams and easy, a CCLIMATIZATION. In my room. I sit at the window for a long time, looking out at the starry sky over Cusco. The stars here seem closer than in Rexburg, brighter and more numerous. I think of Oliver, of Hamish, of the life I left behind. Strangely, I feel no regret or guilt, just a quiet satisfaction that I finally made a choice in favor of myself. The morning starts early, 5 o'clock. Our group gathers in hotel lobby. 8 people from different countries. Carlos, our guide, an energetic young Peruvian man with a wide smile, hands out water bottles and checks equipment. Good morning, adventure. Neighbor, Aldrin appears beside me, fresh and alert despite the early hour, ready to meet history. More than ready, I smile. We get into a minivan that takes us to the Onti Tambo train station. From there, that train takes us to the foot of the mountain, where the ancient Inca city is located. I sit next to a learner on that train, and together we watch the majestic scenery float by. Verdant valley surrounded by the snowy peaks of the Andes. Rushing rivers, small villages where time seems to have stood still centuries ago. You know, said Aldrin without taking his eyes off the window. I've been to many wonderful places. But there's something special about these mountains. Something eternal. I know what he means. Here among these ancient peaks our human problems seem so insignificant. Vanity, ambition, conflict. It all becomes meaningless in the face of these mountains that have stood here long before us and will stand after we are gone. The train stops in the town of Aguas Calientes, from where Machu Picchu must be climbed either on foot or by bus up a serpentine road. Most people choose the bus, but Aldrin suggests, why don't walk? They say there's a trail that takes about an hour and a half. Difficult, but the views are worth it. I hesitate. At 65, this kind of climb is no joke. But isn't that why I came here? To overcome myself, to do things I've never dared to do before. Let's give it a try. I agreed. Carlos nods approvingly. It's a good choice. I'll go with you. Show you the way. The rest of you can take the bus and we'll meet at the top. The path is really steep. Narrow stone steps, some dating back to the Incas, lead up through thick fog. My breathing is labored and my legs start to buzz after half an hour. But Alanonis beside me, cheering me up with stories of even harder climbs he's done in Nepal. He says when we stop for a break, I climbed 5,000 meters at the age of 70. The guide was horrified, offered to hire porters, but I told him, young man, age is just a number, and willpower is what really matters. I laugh, wiping sweat from my forehead. You are an incredible man, Algernon. And so are you, Giovanna. He looks at me warmly. Not every woman your age would dare to undertake such a journey, especially not alone. There's no condescension in his words, only genuine admiration. And I suddenly realized that I'm really proud of myself. My decision to leave, my courage to start a new life, even this climb I'm on. When we finally reached the top, the mist suddenly parted like a theater curtain, revealing a breathtaking view. Machu Picchu lies before us, an ancient Inca site miraculously preserved among the verdant peaks. Stone terraces, temples, houses, all floating in the clouds. Oh, Oliver, I whisper, unable to contain my emotions. If only you could see it. Aldrin steps away delicately, giving me a moment of privacy. I stand soaking in the grandeur of the place, feeling tears run down my cheeks. That they are not tears of grief. They are tears of awe, of gratitude that I have lived to see this moment. Carlos walks us through the ruins, telling us about the history of the Incas, about their engineering genius, about how they created this city on top of a mountain without modern technology. I listen mesmerized, absorbing every word, taking photos, but realizing that no photo can capture the scale and energy of this place. The Incas believed that the mountains were sacred. Carlos tells me they called them Apu deities guardians. Machu Picchu was built not just as a city, but as a place of power, connecting the earthly and the divine. I can feel that power. It pulses in the ancient stones, in the air, in the ground beneath my feet. It is a place where time loses its linearity, where past and present exist simultaneously. In the evening, after returning to Aguascalientes, Algerian, and I have dinner at a small restaurant overlooking Ferrabamba River. Tired but happy, we exchange impressions. I've been to a lot of amazing places, Algerian says, sipping a local beer. But Machu Picchu, it's something special. I feel the same way, I nod. It's like this place changes you. Exactly. He perks up. You know, I believe there are places on Earth that have transformative powers. They make us rethink our lives, our priorities. I think about my transformation, which began back in Rexburg, when I decided to walk away from a toxic relationship with me son. Machu Picchu only confirmed the rightness of that choice. What will you be doing after the tour? Algernon asks. Will you go back to Rexburg? I shake my head. No, there's nothing else for me there. I don't go into detail, but something in his gaze tells me he understands that maybe he's had a similar story. Have you? I ask. Oh, I have many more places on my list. He smiles. After Peru, I'm thinking of going to Ecuador to the Galapagos Islands. I've always wanted to see jumptortoises and marine iguanas. That sounds wonderful. Could you? He stammered. A little. Join me if you'd like. No strings attached, of course. Just as a traveling companion. His offer takes me by surprise. We've only known each other for 2 days, but there's already a connection between us, an understanding that's hard to explain. Yeah, think about it, I answer, not wanting to rush into a decision. Of course, he smiles. No pressure. Just know that the offer is open. The next day, we drive back to Cusco. At the hotel, I finally turn on my phone and see a dozen more messages from Hamish. Judging by his tone, he's gotten my short reply and is now wavering between anger and despair. How? Can you be so cruel? After all we've done for you, Mum, please. We're in a desperate situation. The store is on the verge of closing. Lorian has lost her job. If you don't come back, we'll sue. You can't just disappear. I read the messages without emotion, as if they were written about someone else, not me. Then, I delete them all and turn off my phone. If Hamish wants to sue, let him. I had everything done legally. The house was mine. The money was mine. I had every right to use it as I saw fit. Instead of thinking about Hamish's problems, I go to the little gift store across the street from the hotel and buy a postcard of Machu Picchu. Then I sit in the lobby and write, Dear Meredith, Peru is beautiful. Machu Picchu is exactly the wonder Oliver and I envisioned it to be. I walked up there. Can you believe it? At my age, here I met a wonderful man, an Englishman named Lernan. He invited me to continue my journey with him to the Galapagos Islands. I almost decided to accept. Don't worry about Hamish. He'll be fine. People usually get exactly what they deserve, both bad and good. I don't know if I'll ever go back to Rexburg. The world turned out to be so big and life so short. I want to see as much as I can while I can. Love, Giovanna. I seal Feckard, affix a stamp, and give it to the front desk. To send. Then I go up to my room and start packing. Tomorrow I fly to Guayaquil, Ecuador, and from there to Galapagos Islands. Aldrin and I agreed to meet there in a small hotel on Santa Cruz Island. Who knows what this trip would bring? Maybe just friendship and new experiences, or maybe something more. But most importantly, I'm no longer afraid of the unknown. I'm not afraid to make choices for myself. I'm not afraid to be happy. As I stand at the window overlooking the mountains, I think about the path that brought me here, about the years of silent patience, the moment when the Cupo flowed, the decision to leave. The journey was long, but it was worth it. Machu Picchu. That ancient city in the clouds taught me an important lesson. Sometimes you have to climb very high to see how small your fears and doubts were. And now that I finally see that, I have no intention of going back down.